folks, and welcome to this first video interview slash podcast by Decure.in on green design for sustainability. Today we have with us architect Nilesh Gandhi to speak on this topic. Let me first introduce Decure.in to you. Decure is an online store for procurement of home interior products. Decure aims to simplify the product procurement process in the interior space for professionals and homeowners. Let me now introduce our speaker for today, architect Nilesh Gandhi. Architect Nilesh Gandhi specializes in landscape and green building certification. He is a lead IGBC, GRIHA trainer in evaluator, edge expert and auditor. He holds an honorary PhD from Cornell University after partially pursuing his PhD from IIT Bombay. He has done his master's in project management and has over 2 decades of experience working for prominent companies like Shapoorji Pallonji and Edifice. With a strong ideology of organization over individual and his quest for brand creation, he has started his own firm, Meta Design. Architect Nilesh Gandhi has been part of many forums and discussions on sustainability and green design, and his endeavors have been widely published. We thank you, sir, for being part of this endeavor of ours where we are trying to create awareness about green design. Uh, Sir, when it comes to green buildings, we only hear about energy saving and water saving. But we would like to understand what exactly is the concept of a green home and what are the aspects that constitute a green home.
Right. Thanks, Parth, for the introduction. But let me first take this opportunity to also congratulate you. It is a good initiative that you guys have taken, and this is really the need of the hour because as much as there is concepts about it, there are equal number of misconceptions about green. So I think this particular series of sessions that you are planning will actually go a long way into demystifying stuff for people and also trying to create awareness among stakeholders as to what is the need and why is this required. So coming to a question, yes, when it comes to green buildings, much of the talk is about electricity and water. The reason being simple that majority of our generation of electricity is coal fired, and coal based electrical generation has leaves a lot of footprint, leaves a lot of carbon footprint on the environment, which is not healthy because they consume finite resources which are in short supply, and because these natural resources are being consumed and do not have the power to be replenished, that is the reason the obvious need for focusing on reducing your electrical demands as also focusing on renewable sources like solar and water, solar, hydro. If you all said, if you look at it from a holistic point of view, we need electricity and water for our existence. Without these two things, we just cannot exist. Hence, green buildings, when they start talking, the primary and the major focus goes on these two aspects of electricity and water. So also, there are a lot of technologies like which are so easy to use, rainwater harvesting, or for that matter, irrigation, or for that matter, using sewage treatment plants. These are available, but they are not so wholesomely adopted. So while these need to grow, ultimately what we need, we can exist today consuming less than 50% of the regular water that we are consuming. Now, what is stopping us from where we are, where we need to be, is an attitude and use of these technologies, use of this awareness. So that is where the green building comes into picture and very overwhelmingly advocates the reduction in these two key aspects of electricity and water.
But we are also trying to understand as a homeowner, what can they incorporate along with their interior designer as part of their design so that they end up building a green home where we take sustainability from corporates to individuals.
The first thing while imagining rather to think about a green home is first is to define your requirements. Consider you have a futuristic vision as to what is ultimately demand and where ultimately you want to be settled around. because that is something which is going to have its toll on the environment, because that is going to get built. But once you have now determined your need as against your greed, uh, defining optimally what your home requires, once you do that, then you go about choosing the lesser evil as to what are the things I should choose for making a home. If you're buying materials for your home, or if you're buying a project, for example, you can the easiest is to go for a home which has been built in a sustainable manner. So, for example, how will you power your home? As we spoke of, electricity and water are the two key aspects. For example, choosing what will charge my home. The solar power, for example, it consumes only 26 gallons of water to generate 1 megawatt of electricity, whereas electrical generation by coal consumes 500 gallons of electricity, 500 gallons of water. So just see what the difference is. So if I'm able to, in my modest way, to feeding my home requirements by solar powered home, it automatically reduces the strain on the water demand of the overall scheme of things. When it comes to interiors,
Hmm.
uh, the primary aspect takes center stage is materials. At that point of time, materials become the elephant in the room when it comes to interior designing, because you have little scope, or you have very little option when you go shopping. For a personal shopping, you look at affordability, you look at value proposition. So for an interior designer and for a stakeholder, what he has to do is go about and also be aware of the fact that the material or the tile or the marble or the granite or the tap that I'm holding or I'm about to choose is coming with its own DNA of high embodied energy. And then once you're aware about it, then choose the match. For example, a wooden flooring. You have a parquet flooring. You have a redwood flooring. So also you have a bamboo flooring. You have an which has such a low embodied energy inbuilt into it. So an obvious choice of choosing a wooden flooring versus a redwood or a mahogany or a teak wood is a sustainable choice by itself. So when it comes to choosing of so the point I'm trying to make is that when with the civil structure intact and with less maneuvering about materials, an interior designer, an architect, or a client, for example, has a lot that he can intervene into to define the sustainability of that home itself.
Uh, so, according to research, consumers can now save up to 20% of their monthly bills without incurring any additional expenditure during construction by following energy efficiency norms proposed by the Bureau of Energy and Efficiency. How can this be done by an architect during design phase? Also, how is the newly developed tool based on the EcoNivas Samhita program help in this respect?
So the Bureau of Energy Efficiency has done a great job, incidentally, by defining the ratings for equipments. Earlier, we used to buy AC just because someone recommended, "हाँ, तुम्हारे room के लिए a 2 ton should be sufficient, or a 1.5 ton should be sufficient. Your hall is big, so buy a 2 tonner," and you never knew. But giving it a 3-star rating or a 5-star rating tells me how much I'm going to consume, how much is my operational expenses for that particular equipment over its lifespan. Similarly, something needs to be required for materials which is not there. So when I go for materials, I don't know how good or bad is a vitrified tile against the other. So 20% is not is something a very modest target. Electrical consumption can reduce as high as 40% when it comes to energy saving by using of equipments recommended by BEE, or by retrofitting, or by making basic changes in your home interiors. You also mentioned about EcoSamhita. That is a very recent rating which has been recently launched into the market. Of course, IGBC is a pole position with being a market leader because it has been for years into the market. But there are various other. There is no rocket science that any of these rating systems teach. The fundamental logic is the same. You are stressed for what? You are stressed for resources, electrical resources, water resources, and material resources. Once you tap these, once you are able to address these three aspects, then your home by default will become a green home. It is just about old wine in new bottle or same wine in multiple bottles. But the rating systems have a very similar underlying aspect. Underlying fundamental is the same. Consume or consume lesser natural resources and think about how you can reasonableize your demand. That's it. What is ultimately any rating system goes to speak.
Are current interior designers picking products and materials while designing which have lower environmental impact? Like, are they actually buying those? Are they suggesting those to the customer? And is the customer agreeing to those?
So the answer to your question is a yes and a no. Yes, because interior designers are being aware. They are quite aware about what are the new age materials that are being available in the market. They are trying to make their attempts to recommend those also to the client. What happens is that, yeah, under project pressures, and we are in our system of things, the way we work, the timelines takes precedence over anything else. So ultimately, what happens is use what is of the available on the shelf. So that takes precedence over a green or an eco-friendly material. Today, the interior designer or the client, for that matter, is not so much ready to wait for a material or for a greener or a eco-friendly material if it take time to reach to the site or to the place of use. So with that aspect in mind, uh, it is difficult. And that is the reason. The reason for that is non-planning pre-hand. Suppose you have decided that you have to go for a eco-friendly or a green home, and you make your that is the aspect of project management. So, but as we are discussing on other forums and you were part of it, so project management is something that will lack. If planned well, you will get a green material when you need it. But because of less lack of awareness, wherein we wake up to choose green materials at a later date in time, the victim ultimately is the green or the eco-friendly material. But clients otherwise are being aware. The awareness with these kind of sessions, awareness with architects and with stakeholders is increasing as we see over the past. The trend is towards choosing of materials which are soother, which are not so much damaging to the environment.
How easily are these green materials available? And can you give some specific examples, like someone who's putting an effort, or some brands, or some materials specifically? And what is their cost vis-a-vis the normal materials available? Because obviously, cost is a very important aspect of interior design and construction.
For the availability is not a challenge. The effort to choose the availability is a challenge.
Okay.
If you desire, you can scale the moon, right? If you so desire, you can climb mountains, you can go on to wherever you can. So the attitude towards choosing a material is a challenge. Material availability is fairly picking up. Industry is standing, industry is helping hand in hand to generate materials which are eco-friendly. They are building processes. Today we have vitrified tiles with almost 50-60% recycled content. Steel, for example, is having almost 85% recycled content in the way it is being manufactured. uh, Green materials is a more than $1 trillion industry, and manufacturers have awakened to this particular fact that the need for and the demand for green materials is on the rise. That's the reason they have modified their manufacturing processes to make the materials easily available to the end user. So at one end, the availability is improving. We never thought that you will have paints being advertised as low VOC paints. Now, where does this low VOC come from? The volatile organic compound. So that is something which people got aware that you must have observed when you enter into a very newly completed home where it is very recently painted, you get a very strong smell of chemical of that paint, which is actually harmful for your lungs. And that's where to create a better air quality, the concept of lower volatile organic compound paints came into the market, and you have the leaders of the industry marketing it that way, advertising it that way, that yes, these paints are now available off the shelf. So again, availability is not such big a challenge as the awareness to seek that material is.
And what about the cost of these materials as compared to the standard on the shelf products?
Any cost is a function of volume. You very well know, you must have also experienced those times when we used to call at 16 rupees a minute, and now with Geo into the market. So why has the cost come down? It is only sheer volume. Similarly, that trend is available or exhibited even in the green building industry as well. The costs are very competitive. They are getting lower and lower. At one point of time, wherein recycled was a no-no, it was like a stigma to use recycled. Now it is the in thing. The entire concept has turned over its head. Similarly, the cost is also getting turned over its head. We have bought urinals which are costing uh, waterless urinals. I have purchased for projects which were costing more than 20,000 grants per urinal, which is come down to less than 5,000 grants today. So the costs are not prohibitive. LED lights, for example, LED light costs have come down year on year sequentially. You map the trend of the LED lighting, solar panels, everything. The host of products that that facilitate making of the green building or the green product market, because of the sheer increase in volume, because of the demand supply, the costs have come down dramatically over the past several years.
Okay, so if I'm a consumer or if I'm an interior designer and I'm looking for products, you mentioned about this, but are there any certification labels or symbols or any standardizations available in the market that I can ask for these products, certain type of products, or something that helps me understand that a product is a green product or is built from sustainable materials? Like we have something like we have for the electronic equipment or the white goods, similar to that for the other materials, let's say like wood or tiles or the sanitary fittings.
So there is not much, unfortunately, there is not much happening in that space in the Indian market. But there are global certifications like Green Globe certification or Green Label certification or the FSA certification, which is available for materials like carpets, wood. We have our own homegrown IGBC, which has now started certifying companies. Green Co. They have a rating which is called a Green Co., which is IGBC Green Company, which will define as to the products that they are making are sustainable and eco-friendly. But it has yet to take steam. Suppose a proponent or a stakeholder decides and wants green materials, the safest bet is to go with these global certifications of a green label certification when he wants to buy carpets, or purchase wood which has a FSA certified wood, which will come with its own inherent chain of custody, and making a statement or authenticating the responsible way in which that material has been manufactured. But to answer your question, in the Indian market, this is picking up, but we have a bit long way to go there.
One thing, what about recycling and repurposing of materials when you're redoing your house or you're renovating as compared to buying a new house? How important a role does that have to play? And are we seeing a trend where this is being incorporated in design from a more sustainability point of view?
So yeah, very well pointed out, because recycle is something which has been used equally as much it has been abused. So it is not only about recycling, but it is about, as you said, it is about repurposing or upscaling or redefining materials. Every material needs a chance. Every material needs a chance to be used to its fullest potential. That is something that we need to be aware too. For example, we still look down upon reusing materials. If I have, for example, if I have replaced an old door in my house, I would hesitate. The Indian psyche would hesitate to use that old door as probably tabletop or as a seat or as something else. There is a lot of creativity involved into it, but the psyche has to be there, that yes, it is that wooden door, which is probably damaged a bit, has still some steam left in it. It is so easy for us to dump it to the dump yard or dump it to the landfill. But we as a society are not giving every material its due chance to get back into the fold, into the front usage. That's where repurposing, or that's where recycling or upcycling with minor modification, that itself, even if that is done, that itself will reduce a lot of strain into the virgin material market. It is so easy to buy a material. It is a bit difficult. It is a tad difficult to apply your brains and apply your creativity and apply a bit of extra effort into reusing a material. But if done that, it will go a long way into reasonableizing the and reducing the carbon footprint.
Uh, Heating and lighting also is a very critical aspect when it comes to the design of homes. What specifically can be done for these two?
Focus has to be on more on HVAC or heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, because those are the bigger culprits, or culprits. I would say culprits is not the right word to use, but they are the ones who consume more than 50 to 60% of a total electrical load. Lighting is by far the small brother in the energy consumption game. So if your focus is more on HVAC, you will stand to gain a lot from your energy saving perspective. Lighting, of course, you have plethora of options. We spoke of the cost of LED lights have drastically come down. The cost of sensors have come down. So the choice of replacing all your lighting, replacing your sensors, adopting sensors, or placing your lights effectively will reduce your lighting loads drastically. And so also, again, insulation, for example, because we don't see leakages. For us, we only understand leakages as a water leakage. But we as in consumer have not yet been aware towards air con leakage, or against insulation, against heat leakage. That is something that we don't see. So a very well thought of, well planned interior space, which is leak proof from an air conditioning point of view, will also go a long way to reducing your tonnage. So also there is something that we call as passive measures and active measures. Selecting and replacing a light bulb with an LED light is an active measure. But when you are on the drawing, architect is on a drawing board, just designing, just deciding to place your building in an orientation which is in sync with the environment is something which will go a long way to reducing your energy loads any which case. For example, if I have my southern west facades, which I am reducing them, and my exposure to the southwest facade of my building is lesser than my other facades, because of we being into the hemisphere, and we have our sun direction to the southwest and southeast. That's the reason your heat absorption from those facades will become lesser, which will turn into your your HVAC loads, which will lead to lesser electrical loads. So the first focus has to be on your passive techniques, wherein you design accordingly when you're on the drawing board. And then when you're done with it, then you have these extra ECMs that we call the energy conservation measures that you have to adopt by using all these technological equipment also to ultimately reduce your loads.
And now I'd like to come to water. So in 2017, Cape Town was facing day zero, where they had practically no water. A similar situation was heard to be a possibility maybe in 2018-19 in Chennai and Bangalore because they face really low groundwater content. So how can we help this situation with design, the water consumption?
So glad you asked that question again. Cape Town is an excellent example as to how it bounced back, reaching to that brink. I can only imagine how fearful it would be. The only option is to reduce your water demands. And there are we spoke of the things that we spoke of earlier. There are technologies, there are methods available wherein you can still live your own life with your minimum water intake that you drink. the BMC or the corporations have mandated that for a human to live, he needs 165, 150 liters of water per day. But this can very easily be brought down to sub 100 levels by replenishing, by reusing your water. We have adopted retrofits into existing taps, wherein with your flush tanks, which spend more than 6 to 10 liters per flush, we have brought it down to 2 to 3 liters per flush. You have taps which will dispense less than a liter of water per minute, as against 2 to 3 liters of water per minute. Press touch, spring touch, sensor-based taps. All these are methods wherein our water is helping us to reduce our water demand. Promoting waterless urinals, using STP plants, wherein we recirculate almost 80% of water for flushing requirements. Using rainwater harvesting, very simple. We don't need to store rainwater harvesting. The ground is the biggest storage tank. We promote using the ground as a storage, because using of a storage tank is a cost in itself. But even if I am able to recharge my groundwater table, is a good rainwater harvesting technique. So just recharging the groundwork by all the water that you would, all the fresh water that you would ultimately let it drain off into the sewer, we will want to channelize that into the ground. So these are many such things that we have adopted across projects over the decades, which have some way or the other surely have contributed into making a positive contribution to the environment, as well as reducing the carbon footprint.
Thing that out of the 7 billion square feet certified green buildings or green spaces in India, only about 5 to 7% are residential spaces. Why are builders and developers shying away from building or buying green homes?
So see, what happens is that making of a green home is not helping you in the short run. Making of a green home is helping you in the long run till the time it exists. It is not a Maggie. It is not a 2-minute quick fix solution that make a green home, reap the benefits, and that's about it. No, it isn't that way. For developers who are making green buildings or who are making residential apartments, they have a strategy of making green home, selling those off, and getting out of the project. So they do not stay there to reap the benefits of that green home for the next 50 years of that life of that particular building. That's the reason why you see what you see in that sense, that lower percentage of homes is the residential segment. Whereas what happens in the commercial segment is that a developer is making a commercial setup, he is giving it on lease, he is there to maintain the entire common spaces, lobby spaces, everything is maintained by the developer. So the biggest tangible benefit of a green or a eco-friendly building is the reduction in maintenance cost, is the reduction in operational cost, and the biggest beneficiary of it is the one who maintains that for its lifespan. That's the reason the impetus is more towards the commercial segment than the residential segment.
So there's a great push in the market towards affordable housing. So my question here is can we make affordable housing green? Because there's a perception that green homes are meant to be an expensive affair.
As I said, we would like to turn the entire concept of green being expensive to green being cheap, or green being value proposition. As I said earlier, when we started, the cost of green buildings was almost 20% higher than normal buildings, which scaled down to less than 5% in the past 5 or 7 years. To such an extent that today we are expecting and we are hoping that making of a green building is going to be actually cheaper or actually cost effective than making a regular home. So affordability and cost are totally two independent things. Affordability is from a aspect of the end ticket price of that particular building, and in the real estate game, as you know, more than 70% is the land component. So the affordability, the 100 rupees affordability, out of that 100 rupees, 70% is the land play or the location play. Only 30 to 40% is the construction play. Out of that, the cost of increment or a decrement or the cost of making it environmentally sustainable is hardly 5 to 7% play. So you can just see that affordability and making it green, it is just a myth. It is a fear psychosis that people feel that hey, to make green it's going to be expensive. I cannot afford it. Want to make a very challenging. We want to make a very cost-effective product. So, but there are other. So that is where we need to come in and we need to encourage people and tell them that making of a green home or a eco-friendly or a sustainable home is not going to be expensive enough. And with affordability, it's all the more reason because it is meant for people who will not be able to afford the high operating cost. So it is all the more important for it to be made to these homes be made reasonable to be able to be sustained and maintained in the long run.
Okay. So, what steps can existing housing societies or small buildings, equally and big buildings, take towards building a green future?
So, housing societies have a power. They have a huge power of communities. They have the power and the muscle of volume. Take a simple aspect as simple as wet waste. A normal family or a four-member family generates almost 500-700 grams of wet waste per day per home, right? Multiply that by a 100-member society. 5 tons of wet waste generated every day, and this 5 tons of waste is equal to 1/10 by way of volume and by weight if you just convert it to manure. Now, what does it require? It just requires a mindset change, a little bit of resources, and little bit of time. So, as a society, if you're able to just convert, nothing else, just convert. Don't dump your problem to the corporation. Your problem is your problem. Try and solve it there. Just imagine if you don't do this, the BMC or the municipal corporation truck comes, takes your wet waste, dumps it to 10-15 kilometers away into a dumping ground, and it emits methane, it spoils the environment there, then it becomes a catastrophic problem of sorts. As against that, you have a choice to convert that into that 500 grams of wet waste per day, you can convert into 50 grams of manure, fertilizer by yourself in your own home. Forget chalo societies. So societies have a lot to do. They have a lot of potential to do such things, adopt these and many other things to probably make a notable contribution into this energy saving or environmental safeguarding process.
Okay. India has an ambitious target of having 10 billion square feet green footprint by 2022. What does the government need to do to get there?
This surely will need a policy level intervention. And government and the bureaucracy have spoken to this fact and they are incentivizing. See, all said and done, people, the Indian psyche needs incentives. What is the benefit? हमारा क्या फायदा होगा? Green building करने से क्या फायदा है? So, to answer these questions which people have always, the various state governments have issued policies wherein they are offering higher FSIs. The Haryana government has gone ahead offering 15% extra FAR. Noida and the Ministry of Urban Development there also have offered 5% extra FAR, FSI for green building projects. The Pune Chinchwad Municipal Corporation is offering 50% rebate on the premium waiver on the premiums for developers. So, variety of levels. These are all under pilot phases. Incentives have been given by the bureaucracy to promote green buildings, but the basic need has to come from within, from the stakeholder himself. And as I said, it is not only about the large-scale developers. We have come across various developers and various segments of builders who are adopting this as a lifestyle, as a basic tenet. If I build, I will build. If just that is a imbibing philosophy that each one adopts, and each architect or each stakeholder decides that I'm going to overwhelmingly promote making of a green building, I think the target is fairly achievable. And there are various rating systems available in the market today, which one can choose from.
So we are trying to encourage over here for homeowners to go for green design. So as an incentive to them, sir, are there any certifications for a green home? And is there any way to get these so that someone can be proud that not only have I put in an effort, I have some recognition for it?
Griha, for example, has a very simple, easy to use tool called Swagriha, which is for projects which are less than 2500 square meters. It is meant for smaller structures and smaller independent homes, wherein a user or a stakeholder can go with a very self-help tool and get his project self-certified.
Okay.
So also the latest entrant, or not the latest, but a very aggressive and a very game changer rating system in the market is Edge. The Edge is a rating system which is again funded by the International Finance Corporation, which is a member of the World Bank, and they have a very easy to use tool. So you may not go for certification, but it gives you a very easy to use handy tool wherein you focus on your electricity, water, and materials. It will tell you by the things that you are proposing to do whether you are taking the right choice or no. It gives you it gives you at the tip at your fingertips the payback calculations, the investments that you want to make, at what time will you recover all your money that you are putting in, or whether you should put in more money or you are actually saving making a green home. So the Edge buildings.in is a very easy to use tool which is for every people who's an enthusiast, and very something that you can grasp even in one sitting, kind of a thing. So these things are available. You don't need to engage consultants and go with a very formal system of documentation and get your project certified. But IGBC, Green Homes, or Edge, or Griha, they all have these beta version and small pilot projects wherein a person can be proud of the initiatives and even tell it to the society.
Last question for you. So can you give us, so you have this 2 decades experience in this landscape and green design. So can you give us some specific examples on both on a project level and at a home level where you have implemented certain pointers or specific examples of how that has resulted in a more sustainable house or a more sustainable project?
So if you take just a few projects, for example, we recently completed one interiors for RBL Bank, and it was a 75,000 square feet floor plate which received a platinum certification. So what went into defining the specs of that particular project was what we spoke of, is the choice of materials, the choice of an intelligent electrical layout, a choice of a better MEP design, which led to substantial savings into the energy as well as into the water as well as into the material aspects of that particular project. Use of flash bricks, for example, is a no-brainer. The red bricks are out of the market because they consume huge amount of natural resources. They need to be burned, the furnace is required, but using a flash bricks which comes out of flash, which is a waste from a thermal coal plant, is something that we have overwhelmingly used across projects. Even in our landscape projects, wherever we do, we have planters and brick walls. We promote AEC blocks, we promote flash bricks, we promote bamboo materials. Every small space, be it a washroom or lobbies, we promote using of sensors. The cost of sensors has come down to few hundreds. At 200 rupees at Amazon, you'll get a very efficient occupancy sensor, and you can forget about your switching on and off your lights. That goes a long way into saving your electrical cost over a 1 year horizon.
That's great. That's great. We really hope that these points that you have mentioned over here are taken as a source of inspiration by interior designers, homeowners, and builders to incorporate in their projects and work towards a more sustainable, a more green approach and help in saving the environment. We really thank you for these points. Is there any message that you would like to give interior designers, budding interior designers who are going to join the field now, so that We start with these points.
So the message would always be to all the budding and aspirants is that you have to be different. Being run of the mill, you will be lost in the crowd. Now that is something which I have lived by and tried also. So there has to be you. It is good to be an inch wide and a mile deep rather than a mile wide and just an inch deep. So research research is something that I would really want people to focus on, and you may know your spectrum of knowledge could be lesser, but if it is deeper, it will help us in the long run. It will help you in the long run. So rather than spreading wide, have a very laser sharp focus, have a very laser sharp vision into some core aspect of your liking. And once you go threadbare it, then it will of course give you a satisfaction, but also will help you differentiate amongst the crowd. Is some message I would really want to give to all the aspiring people out there.
Great, great. That is a great message. Thank you so much, sir, for your encouraging words.
Would really congratulate you. It is good that you have taken, you have decided to be the flag bearer to take this and also to promote this and help the overall society to create this. So this should, I'm sure, this will help to create more awareness and basically break some myths which are lying around and being circulated in the market about green buildings and sustainability and everything else.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll put in our efforts. We're trying that uh, on Decure also, where we're trying to segregate products that are green, like faucets which will consume less water, equipment that have a better rating. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to create differentiation also. I hope
Excellent platform at hand at Decure.in with our whatever past association that we have experienced. I think you have again a game changer at your disposal, and it has a lot of potential to actually redefine and be a aggregator at the same time. Really help the interior design industry. So I think you have a good, you have a what you could say a winner at your hand. All the best. All the best.
thank you. Thank you again for those encouraging words. We are putting in all our efforts to hopefully create something really valuable and helpful for the interior designer.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.